Tell us about a situation where someone, not knowing that you are an expert, decided to compete with you in your own field. My brother, who is 17 years younger than me, said he would beat me in Mortal Kombat. How cute. He didn't even realize that first Mortal Kombat came out 15 years before he was born. I played at my maximum, even though he was only 7. The little one got his ass whooped. I had the same thing with my nephew, except we weren't playing Mortal Kombat but Mario Kart. I remember him showing off and claiming, "He played better than anyone else in his class. No one wanted to play with him because he always won." You sure about that, little shithead? I've played more Mario Kart than you live. Now he's begging me to give in to him and let him win sometimes. Sorry, bro. It's important for me to keep up high rating. I once took a meter ruler and jokingly suggested to my philosophy teacher that we should have a sword fight. He took the pointer and disarmed me instantly. It turned out that when he was a student at Oxford, he was actively engaged in fencing, and for a long time after that. Only in a British school. I was a pianist, specializing in classical and jazz. I played from the age of 5. During my life, I won a lot of pianist competitions. When I was in high school, on weekends I worked at the local jazz club, sometimes playing solo improvisations, sometimes playing in an ensemble. In general, I was definitely on a first-name basis with the piano. Once, when I was already in my first year of college, my friends and I hung out in the dorm dining hall. There was a small piano in the corner of the room and some dude was sitting at it. We approached him and I politely asked if I could play a little too once he was done. He glanced over and answered irritably, "I have a degree in music. I need to study." Keep in mind that I don't have a music degree, and at that point I hadn't sat at an instrument for 2 months, but I was still confident in my abilities. The competitive spirit woke up in me. I said, "You can play any song, and if I repeat it, you'll give me your seat." It was about 6 p.m., and there were a lot of people in the dining room. At this point, the dude felt he had a chance to humiliate me in front of everybody. He looked at me and said, "Chopin Etude." I asked, "Which one?" The dude was immediately shocked that I was good at this subject. I knew 19 etudes and prayed to myself that he wouldn't pick one of the 5 that I didn't know. Fortunately, he picked Opus 10, number 12, and started playing. I must admit, he played quite nicely, but he was a little laid back with the tempo and mixing up the left-hand notes. When he played the last note, he pulled back and said it was my turn. I swear, I sat down and played that etude without any warm-up, as I had never played it before. My left hand wasn't swinging, and my tempo was much faster and more steady than his. His face turned red. He said I was pretty good and started to walk away, but I stopped him and asked what was his name. He introduced himself and apologized for his tone. I said no problem, and asked what floor he lived on. We ended up being pretty close friends and occasionally talked to each other. Sadly, after the second year, he moved away because he had gone to another music college. I was about 12 years old at the time. I was on vacation with my family. We stayed at some place in the resort where there was a sports club for kids. I was sitting with 3 dudes, 2 of whom were older than me and in obviously better shape. The third was my age, little annoying freak. We decided to play 2-on-2 tennis. Seniors wanted to be on the same team together. The little guy threw a tantrum because he didn't want me on the same team as him. I was very small and thin. I didn't look like an athlete at all. But by then, I had been competing in tennis for a few years. I dragged the whole game on me, after which the kid didn't say a word. We had a second or third date. We decided to go bowling. As we were parking, she started showing off her skills and said she wouldn't leave me a chance. I didn't respond to that in any way. I just opened the trunk and pulled out my bowling ball and special shoes. She stopped talking in the middle of the sentence, looked at me and said, "I guess I'm going to regret everything I said, aren't I?" She did regret it. When I was in college, I drank a lot, and it caused me to develop a pretty strong immunity to tequila. I never told my parents I was drinking. They saw that I never drank at family gatherings and so assumed that I didn't like booze at all. In fact, I just didn't want to be drunk in front of my family. One day, my father with me and my brothers decided to have a good drink. One of the brothers calls me to join them, but my father stops him and says I don't drink, but I decide to join. We drank 5 shots with them. My drinking buddies were already noticeably shaky, but I was sober as a whistle. My dad was confused, but also proud of me. Modified. By the way, writing this post drunk. Some fuckboy came up to me and my friends and wouldn't leave us alone. This dipshit suggested me to compete with him who'd last longer on a mechanical bull. But he was unaware that I grew up on a farm and that I had a lot of experience riding jumping animals. Our poor fuckboy went down after only a few seconds. I lasted almost 2 minutes, from the fact that everything was happening in bar, Operator put it at an easy level first, and then raise it to the point where even I was already having a hard time. In his defense, I should say that then he stopped bothering us. Moreover, I think he got the hell out of the bar. Random guy came up to me at a party and gave me a lecture on some theme. He quoted a work related to that topic and tried to explain it to me. I admonished him that he had misunderstood, and in response he started insulting me and told me that I was just too dumb for such topics. He even called some people over to watch me being dumb. But I decided to stop him and asked, "Who wrote this work?" He didn't know. I suggested that he Google it. To his surprise, this work was written by me. He quoted me my own words and tried to explain to me what I meant in my research. He mumbled something there, after which I gave him my card and told him that if he suddenly wanted to stop being so ignorant, he could call me any minute. Gamer moment. At one point, someone doubted that I'm an expert about Batman and quickly regretted it. I occasionally come across atomic energy haters who try to convince me that atomic energy is the worst thing that has happened to mankind. But they usually don't know that I have a master's degree in nuclear engineering. When I tell them that coal power gives off far more radiation than nuclear power, they stop listening and reproach me for being biased. I used to play trumpet in the local symphony. At some point, I got sick of it, because everyone saw each other only as competitors, constantly arguing and forgetting about the music. I played along with my friend who played violin. After I left, I decided to stop by my group for a concert. After the concert, I had no problem going backstage because I knew the guard well, and I went to my violinist friend. He asked me what I thought of their performance. I said everything, and he jokingly replied that they lacked a good trumpet player. Then I decided to criticize their spiritual section a little bit. Some girl overheard it, apparently a new girl, because I had no idea who she was. She came up to me and defiantly came at me with the words, "I heard what you said. Who are you to criticize our music anyway?" I calmly replied, "Honey, I've been the main trumpet player here for 5 years." She tried to tone down her rudeness and asked why I left. I smiled and said, "Because of people like you." When I was in the Marine Corps, we had a lot of grappling, wrestling exercises. For a Marine, I looked very non-threatening. But my coworkers didn't know that before I got in the Army, I had been doing jiu-jitsu for almost 5 years. So when another bruiser came up to me and offered to wrestle, I was happy to smear him on the floor. It even turned into a little joke for us. When the dudes realized what I was capable of, they started pairing me up with unsuspecting recruits for fun. I used to be really good at Gears of War. When the second part came out, my buddy invited me to a tournament that some kid from our school had set up at his house. This kid was showing off a lot, especially in my direction. Apparently he didn't like me much. At some point I couldn't take it anymore. I said, "Okay, let's go one-on-one," and we sat down to play. Turned on the execution mode on the river map, my favorite map. No sooner had we finished playing, that guy went into a rage and punched the wall. Then his father came running in and saw that his 16-year-old son had punched a hole in the wall for some game and asked me to leave. I was at the gym at work. Nearby on the treadmill was a fairly mature and fit man, and there was some other dude hanging around the gym, not really working out and coming up to everyone with his advice. For some reason, it was more for the girls. Why do guys think girls need help in the gym? Anyway, he was just getting in the way. So he walks up to that running man and starts asking him what he's getting ready for. The running man says, "I have an ultra marathon in 2 weeks. Annoying guy is surprised. As a joke, he says, "Do you think you'll win?" Man, "Most likely." Guy laughed. "It's important to keep a positive mood, isn't it?" Man, "Well, the last 3 years I always came first. The closest result to me is 50 minutes longer than mine. So yes, the mood is really positive. I'm sneakily starting to do some research on this man. It turns out that he does own a few records for ultramarathon, 24-hour road runs, and 48-hour treadmill races. I don't want to call myself an expert by any means, but last year I was invited to a Christmas party where there was a dessert contest. No one really knew that I went to culinary college. I won unanimously. My main competitor said he wanted a rematch next year. Great, I'm just about to start baking this semester, so good luck, mister. I got an athletic scholarship in college. I was a pretty good swimmer, but after college I went to graduate school, studied biochemistry, and stopped taking care of myself. I lost my form, but the technique was still with me. So my wife and I are on vacation at a resort in Puerto Rico. At some point I quickly swim my way across the pool and some dude saw me and offered to compete with his buddy. His dude was really pumped up, drawing a lot of attention to himself. He suggested I swim back and forth across the pool and told me that the loser would present drinks to everyone. There were 4 of us and 8 of them. The pool was 30 yards, so there was a 50-meter freestyle swim waiting for us. And I was a sprinter. Back in college, I could swim that distance in 23 seconds. So I said yes, and he immediately started swimming. I turned on sharply too, and swam to the other end, doing the roll, pushing off with just beastly power and swam to the finish line. The moment I touched the wall, this dude had about half the pool to swim. He kept his promise and bought everyone a beer. Then we saw these guys more than once. The dude was visibly embarrassed in front of me, but I thought he wasn't a bad guy. It would be funny if it turned out that he or his friends are sitting on Reddit and would read this post. Thanks so much for watching. In the comments, tell us about situation when someone who doesn't know that you, an expert, decides to compete with you in your own field. And don't forget to watch our other episodes. That's it. Bye-bye.